I have very mixed feelings about the Audeze Mobius, and that's what I want to talk about today. But before I'm gonna get into that, let me tell you this much. I am fully aware of the fact that this review will sound quite negative and quite critical. Actually though, way more so than I would have personally ever expected it myself beforehand. But I also think that there is a good reason for that, and at least some of my complaints are definitely reasonable. But it all starts way before the actual review period, because since whenever this was announced as an Indiegogo campaign, it came along with so much hype, all the praise from the influencers, and then also so much of personal excitement got built up inside of me having to wait so long for my review loaner, and all that got up to a level that no product possibly could ever match. And well, the Audeze Mobius couldn't. But it actually doesn't have so much to do with the product itself, but with the actual concept behind that I am not fully behind. But before we are going to that, I want to let you know what's in the box. We get this quite nice case, stable enough, big enough to store everything that we get, which would be, for example, this Type A to Type C cable, Type C to Type C to connect it with the PC. We also get a 3.5mm cable. Its quality is not that great, but I'm gonna get into quality in a second. We also get the detachable microphone and obviously the headphones themselves. And for a price of around 400, what do you get in terms of quality? Well, whenever I see Audeze, which is pretty much not possible to oversee here, I expect an Audeze level. And this is just not what I get here, because I personally own the LCD 2C Classic. And I don't know, because, for example, the headband adjustment here scratches a little bit and it creaks a little bit, and this just feels like a really good gaming headset, but not quite what I would expect from Audeze for 400. Okay, I also have to say this is pretty much the cheapest Audeze that you can get. Let's forget the EL8 for a minute, and nothing has been done bad, because the build quality feels good, the whole finish, the materials feel okay, even though they attract quite a lot of fingerprints. It is done well. But just that. From Audeze, for some reason, I expect more. For example, also we get enough wiggle room. We get this here. The headband is quite plush. Now, the ear cups, I have to say this much. The cutout is actually big enough and deep enough, but those pads are a little bit off, because they are supposed to have some kind of cooling system inside it to prevent you from sweating that much. I can already tell you it does not really work, because my ears got very, very warm. But before we are getting into the comfort part, we have to talk about controls, and I have to say these are a little bit convoluted, because we have so many buttons and so many extra options and secondary options that it's quite hard to get by, and I'm not quite sure if it had to be like this, because here, for example, the mute switch for the microphone, power on and off, you have to press it like 5 seconds to turn it on. Then we get a volume control for the headset and for the microphone, but all of these have extra functionality, because if you press the button inside and then go up and down, you can switch between the tracks if you want to skip that with Bluetooth. Here we can change the presets. Then if you, for example, long press this, we can switch from stereo mode to surround mode, which is something that I didn't find out all that quickly myself. The 3.5mm jack, then the USB Type-C for the microphone, and then the 3D button. And I gotta say, this is what doesn't work all that well, but it works once you get around where what is. But I especially think that having to change the presets like this is a little bit of an odd system, but this is where I want to get into the whole system. Now, this is a 400 euro headset, a wireless one that you can't really use wireless for gaming, because this is using Bluetooth and not 2.4 gigahertz. And with a dongle, this means that even though it has LDAC and you will have pretty much no delay visible for videos and movies, it is not good enough for gaming, because I could watch movies without any problems. The delay is so small and LDAC offers great quality. But at the end of the day, and this is where I think they had a little bit of a wrong approach for this one, and it just shows me that this is a side project from Audeze, where they used a few of the developers by their side and told them, make something unique, make a gaming headset that just offers stuff that you usually don't get. But I also think they should have just looked a little bit what other gaming headsets do, because I've not ever seen a gaming headset with Bluetooth being successful. You have to use Wi-Fi to get that to a delay that is acceptable. So my question already here is, what's the purpose of having a wireless gaming headset that you can't use wireless because you don't want the delay. I mean, it's nice to have the option to listen to music with LDAC, and this is where beforehand I was actually pretty praised up about, because what I expected this to be is kind of like a Swiss Army tool, an all-in-one device, because it wouldn't have been just a great gaming headset, it would have also been a great wireless headset and also a great headphone itself. But it tries to do too much, and it doesn't really do what it is supposed to do right the real way. Because let's just say it once again, LDAC is there. It's great for movies, it's great for videos and everything there, because the delay is small enough to be not an issue. But you shouldn't use this wireless for gaming. That's the issue. And then we also, for example, get software, which is not the typical kind of software that you get, because I mean, you can see here, it has the whole head tracking options. And that's just what you just see those. You can switch between the profiles, get the device info, and then the rest here is pretty much just visual what you can change on the headset, but not really within the software. And that just makes it a little bit unnecessary. So you definitely don't need the software, which is also quite good on the other hand. But when it comes to the whole gaming surrounding, I'll get into that in a second, but now let's finally get into the comfort. If I put them on, I have to say this much. It has a good fit because it doesn't move around, it doesn't wiggle so much. But I also have to say that the comfort is just good. I mean, the weight is okay, you feel the headband, the distribution, the clamping force, all is good. But I also have to say that for some reason it feels like this side, you can maybe even see that, sits a little bit more pushed onto like on the other side. And this just shows me that those pads are a little bit almost too soft, and I've noticed that some of my headsets don't sit properly centered. There is a little bit of something off. That's just normal, I guess, since no head is symmetrical, but on these I feel it also a little bit more. Like I said, what I also feel is that these get quite warm because they sit around your ear very well and they don't really allow for any breathing, so it will get hot, maybe not extremely, because I mostly noticed it when I took them off. Even though I have to say, even though they sit around so good, but maybe not having too much inside of the ear cups in terms of the cushioning, the isolation is actually weaker than I expected, because I can hear myself quite easily, just barely muffled. So if you want a lot of isolation, this is not what you're gonna get here. So that's about that. Now in terms of powering them, now obviously you can use them with Bluetooth or you can use them with the USB Type-C, and the big part about what I like about these is that, especially for a planer who needs a lot of power, these actually are able to be driven loud enough, and actually for me with some minimal reserves. This is something that I usually don't get on Bluetooth headsets, especially not on gaming headsets that are wireless, so all good here. Now obviously if you want to use them Bluetooth, you get all the good qualities out of that and the delay and everything else, so this is good. The controls work out, like I said, a little bit odd with the wheel to change the tracks and so on, but it all is fine. If you want to use them wired, for example with my NFB 1128, they got to shine a little bit more so. Even though I have to mention one thing. At first I noticed that there was a huge quality difference between it using it on Bluetooth and then using it on the USB-C DAC or with 3.5mm, and the issue is the surround mode. Because I'm already gonna tell you this much. I am maybe too old school, but I am not a fan of surround sound on a stereo headset, because the surround sound doesn't feel real, it doesn't feel right, and that's why I think all competitive gamers use stereo only. And especially when I tried to listen to music and wasn't aware that it was 7.1, I noticed something just feels off. The music doesn't feel good enough, and especially metal sounded pretty bad. Once I switched it to either high-res or stereo, which are available as well, things were fine. Then the sound was way better. But I mean, that's just something that you have to keep in mind. Also, like for example, the head tracking. I don't quite get the concept. I think it's a pretty much gimmicky, useless feature, because what it's supposed to do, you look centered and then you press the button so it's centered, and then if you look to the left, the sound is still coming from that direction where it initially came from. And this, but what's the point of it? Because if you watch a movie or if you play a game, you usually look straight onto the display. You don't really look too much to the sides. A little bit, yes, but that little bit I don't think is good enough to make up for this with this feature, to having spent all the extra development time in this, and also for movies, or if you even have a triple monitor setup, I don't think this will be a beneficial thing, because it actually feels very off. I mean, it's realistic that if you move that, the sound stays where it is, which it usually doesn't do, but it didn't enhance my gaming experience. Also the 7.1 surround sound didn't. So for me, those are two features that I think they could have just left out. I mean, surround sound isn't something hard to do. You just implement and it's fine. But the whole extra development for the head tracking, in my opinion, was a little bit of a waste of time. Now, before we're getting into the sound, I want to get into the sound from the microphone. Because if we attach that, you can see it is very flexible. But it does not have one thing that is, I think, very important, but more about that after the demo.
Okay, so this would be the microphone test for the Audeze Mobius. When it comes to the actual microphone quality, I have to say that the sound itself is quite clean, but what I've also noticed is that it sounds a little bit thin. I would wish for a little more richness, warmth, and also just a little bit more body to the voice, which is lacking, even though I have it already at a moderate distance away from my mouth. Because if I would get any closer to try to achieve some more richness, then it will pick up a lot of breathing noises. P sounds though not that much, but here's a demo for that. One thing that is not really an issue is the pick up from the microphone for mice and also keyboards, like I'm demonstrating now, because these actually get filtered out quite good.
Okay, so you've heard the demo and you definitely now get what's my issue. I think they should have put some foam above it, because then I think the issue with the whole pickup of the breathing, which was pretty intense, would have been gone. Otherwise the quality isn't all that great, but it's fine. But that's where I'm gonna leave it. So let's get to the actual sound. And since this is a gaming headset, I'm actually not gonna focus that much on actual sound quality. So let's get into, for example, the gaming now. Now, if you are only used to gaming headsets, this will be easily the best that you've ever used, because after all, it's an Audeze product. Those genes are still there. I mean, not really visibly or quality-wise, but the sound genes are absolutely there. And it will give you an easy location, easy spatial awareness, and you will definitely not just hear from where footsteps are coming, but you will also kind of sense them, feel them, of how far they are away if there is something in between it. And it definitely will be better. But that all comes down that it comes with a price of 400 euros. And I think you could get the same kind of experience, the same kind of competitive advantage over others with something cheaper, because you pay, in my opinion, a lot extra for the whole wireless functionality that you won't use for gaming, also the head tracking and the surround sound. So if they would have left that out, I think they could have made this headphone significantly cheaper, and it then could compete way better with that competition. Because I still would prefer something like an HD58X from Sennheiser, because it's an open back and it makes localization and the whole gaming experience, in my opinion, a little bit more pleasant. Don't get me wrong, this is on a very high level, and especially compared to all the other gaming headsets out there. But also these days, the bigger, higher end brands have noticed something. If we already have a really good stereo headphone, why not just attach a microphone and we have a great headset? And that's something that Audeze didn't quite get, because they try to do way too much. Things that I think most competitive gamers won't really be able to appreciate, because that's what they are not looking for. So let me get this clear. Really good, but it also has stuff that you probably won't ever use. Now, when it comes to one thing, because usually there are two kind of separate tiers of gaming headsets. There are the ones that are for action, fun-packed games, and then there are ones for competitive games. And this one tries to do kind of both, because it gives you a lot of bass, a lot of hard, good action, but still being mature enough, sophisticated enough to deliver you all the spatial awareness, all the soundstage, and all the goodies that you need for good gaming. But it doesn't do either thing perfectly, because there are some more action-focused headsets that do that better, but maybe don't give you quite a precision. And then there are some that are only for precision, only for tracking, only for competitive gaming, and those don't really have the bass. So this is trying to do something in between. I'm not personally sure if something in between is the right thing, because usually a gamer wants this or that, and I don't think he wants a watered down thing of both. That's just my personal opinion, but it is great for gaming nonetheless. Now about music, I'm gonna keep this really short, because I don't think that the people who are looking for a headset review want to know too much about music, but I can tell you this much: it's a very great experience, because we have different presets, even though I personally would stick with default. That's the one that I use for testing, or just the normal one with the amp. You get great bass, it goes quite deep, it's quite impactful, it's quite fast, responsive, does a great job here. The mids are really good, because those are actually not recessed too much, so vocals are also coming in clear. And then we have clear highs, definitely not sibilant, great for long periods of time. So this is an absolutely great music package, absolutely. But now I just want to get back to the crux of this one, because just think about it. Maybe I'm seeing this from the wrong perspective as someone who owns the LCD2 Classics, someone who likes what Audeze does on its own. They make high quality headphones. And this is nothing what they usually do. Like, it doesn't look like it, it doesn't feel like it. It sounds quite like it though, after all. But I expect different build quality. I would expect for a good gaming headset a little bit of a better microphone, a little bit maybe less sweating. And then, I don't know, if you give me wireless, make it usable for games, which it is not here. If you want to make it a great wired headset, and then give me the extra bonus of USB, Bluetooth, fine. But the whole head tracking thing, I think, was just unnecessary, because I don't think any competitive gamer will actually really have a benefit out of that. And that leads me to my conclusion that everything this one does, it does really good, but it also does it for a price that around the 400 for what you would actually use it for is too much. Because, I mean, they could have just spec'd this down. Take away the wireless functionality, or leave it, but then take away the head tracking and maybe some other things and make it a little bit cheaper, closer to like 300, because this is kinda in some way by far the most sophisticated but also most expensive gaming headset. And I don't think that all that many gamers are willing to spend that much on a gaming headset, especially with that one, because if you're just looking for that sound experience, that sound quality, you can get that without the whole extra options somewhere else noticeably cheaper. So once again, what it does really good, but it does it a little bit too expensive with features that I personally think just a lot of people aren't looking for. And that's the main issue. And obviously, like I said, the whole hype couldn't have been matched, just because for me personally, the build quality, also the longer term comfort, because it got quite warm and it's not even the summer yet, was not quite my thing. Sound wise, really, really nice, but I can get this somewhere else cheaper. So whole combo, whole premise feels like they didn't really know what they are or what they were trying to achieve. And therefore I didn't think they did. Okay, until next time, bye.